Welcome into It's Just Wrestling, your favorite or 10th favorite pro wrestling podcast. It might be 11th now because the guy who's joining me today is Nick Hausman, who just launched a new show, Rumor and Innuendo, which I'd highly recommend you go listen to each and every day over on ad-free shows and Haus of Wrestling. Nick, you are now the first multi-time appearance on this show on It's Just Wrestling. So take your bow, take your moment, let this one hit you with rays of sunshine. I want you to suck up all of the positivity that's been going on social media this week with the return of CM Punk to the WWE. There's so much positivity out there, absolutely no negativity. So let those rays of sunshine hit you in the face. And as people who might be joining us live might have recognized, we started a few minutes late. It's because Nick was out at Minnie's Bakery having a couple of muffins with CM Punk before he came on the show. So yes, a lot to get into today. But thanks for coming back.
My pleasure. Hey, yeah, you know, that's what it was. Me and a basket of muffins with old Phil Brooks. That's what was going on. 100%. Run with it.
1,000%. Nothing wrong there. All right, I want to dive into this right off the bat because we want to be in and out today. But there's a lot that has changed since the last time you and I spoke. I think that the last time we talked, AEW was about to announce Collision. I don't think we had gotten to that point together yet. And Punk came back. He gave an interesting-ish promo on Collision where he brought out the real-world title in the bag, used the counterfeit Bucks line. It felt like everything was trending in the right direction, and one had to assume, hey, Punk and the Elite camp, they have to have agreed to work this out. Tony Khan had to have gotten these guys to sit down at some point. They had All In coming up. You have to smooth these things over, right? Like any good businessman would have done that. And any executive vice president whose ultimate interest was to do the best possible business for the company would have 100% have done that, right? Right? Fuck no. Didn't happen. No. So unfortunate. And in the time since, obviously, All In happened, Punk got himself fired. A very interesting scenario, Nick, and something that we'll probably never see is that behind-the-scenes footage of what exactly it was that threatened Tony Khan's life.
You don't think we see it? You don't think we see it?
No.
Oh, I disagree, man.
You really think so?
Yeah, I think here's why I think it comes out at some point. Obviously there's like an awareness of it because it like the fact that it existed like made its way into the sheets. So I just feel like at some point it's going to be an ideal moment to shift the narrative about Punk. And I could see it and it coming up in a way where like AEW is like, we had nothing to do with this. We don't know how this happened. And I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance we see the footage at some point.
Do you think it's something that, in that case, somebody from the AEW camp releases that they're the ones who leak it because they want to paint CM Punk in a bad light? Because if that's the case, I mean, I don't think you're wrong because I think it's very interesting that in the last day or so, we learned that Bryan Danielson was on the committee that ultimately recommended, I suppose, to terminate CM Punk, which is weird because I seem to remember Tony Khan sitting out on a stage saying he made the call, and yet as the news kind of took off in the last day or so about Bryan Danielson being on that committee, the vitriol that you would expect to have happen was all over Bryan Danielson and no longer on Tony Khan, which was its own kind of mess. What a weird thing to do, especially if you're trying to get a guy who says that he's going to be done full-time wrestling next year to stick around in a part-time capacity. A very interesting calculation, I guess, to not have better damage control publicly.
You know, I understand the timing of the Danielson story and why you would bring it up in the same way with the narrative, because it is a way to kind of shift the blame to Bryan. But to be fair, Bryan put up this tweet that was like so obviously like, I've done something, you know, that it was a difficult decision. And, you know, I don't blame Sean. I mean, I wish I'd have seen the tweet earlier because I had heard a lot of this stuff about Bryan already. Maybe I'd have reported it. But like, you know, I don't blame Sean or Fightful for following up on something Bryan said and giving clarity on what he meant. You know, I had a story this week about QT Marshall. He was like, in his post, he said that the company's moving in a different direction. So I wanted to find out, what does that mean, right? Well, it means that, you know, he thinks they're moving in a more New Japan related direction where there's more focus on wrestling, and There you go. So I did the same thing with QT. That's just how it worked. Brian initiated the interest into whatever conversation or whatever decision he had to make. So take that for what it's worth.
Got it. It's still strange. I
Very
still know how I
odd.
feel about it. It was just odd. And I know that there are a lot of questions about whether or not those two are actually close or if there's more of an adversarial thing. And I think that's part of the problem is when that kind of report comes out, which I don't blame the outlet for going out and reporting it.
Right.
You know, you do your due diligence, you do what you're supposed to do, you get it verified by multiple people, and you run with it. I don't blame an outlet for pursuing it. I think that I'm a little bit surprised that the company as a whole didn't seem to be prepared to meet that moment and to kind of assuage the concerns of a certain segment of the internet fan base. I get that you can't make everyone happy, but it does feel like a lot of the stench of that kind of ended up on Danielson. So it does seem like last night, Dynamite did a good job of kind of getting people back on track. I want to get to that in a minute, but first, Punk comes back at Survivor Series, and it comes after a solid War Games match that saw Randy Orton appear to kind of help the team last minute. He was, in fact, in the building. He makes his way out. Everything's hunky-dory. They're about to go off air. You get the trademark at the bottom, and then the static hits, and then there comes the man. You and I had gone back and forth a little bit over the last couple of months about, is there a chance? Is there a chance that the whole thing with Tony Khan was a work, that the firing was a work, and that he could make his way back? And the Devil story makes so much sense. You've got the glass, and could you see a scenario where he comes out at full gear, the inverse of last year where MJF had the clip of Punk using the Devil line? You could use the clip where MJF goes up to the bleeding Punk hanging over the rope. You know, could this be the moment that we see that inverted scenario? And it didn't play out. He goes back to WWE in a moment that he described as hell freezing over. I know that you weren't out in the arena when it happened, but can you give your, I guess, feeling of being, I think you were in the press area getting ready for the press conference when it happened. What was it like to be there when that happened?
It was total disbelief because they had moved us off the floor to the press room right after the War Games match ended. And so we're in the room and I'm getting ready. I got my laptop out, and then everybody starts screaming, CM Punk's back, CM Punk's back. And the only place I could find to watch it was this little monitor that they had in like the corner. And we all sat around just like staring at this tiny little screen, like, what is going on right now? Yeah. And I kind of wish I'd have been in the room for it, but I was very happy to be in the press room and getting ready to talk to these people about it as well. I'll be honest, a little bummed I didn't get to, run it back. Punk and I have not shared space since AEW All Out, and would have been just a real moment in time if we'd have got to, do one more press conference for old time's sakes, right? Just on different grounds, right?
Did you have muffins Did you have muffins in the bag? Like, did you have your I always take my press bag. I sometimes sneak a snack into Wells Fargo Center. Don't tell them.
No, I don't. I didn't.
No muffins ready?
Okay. No muffins. But I was weirdly wearing the exact same outfit I wore to All Out, my like red button down and black jeans. And I didn't. I always wear the red button down, but I didn't want to wear the black jeans because I was like, oh, that's a little nerdy. I was like, I got some nice blue jeans. Mm-hmm. My wife was like, no, the black jeans look so much better. I was like, all right, I'll wear the black jeans, I guess. And so I was dressed exactly like I was at All Out in 2022. There you go. The scoop.
That's ultimate. Listen, aggregators galore. Take this moment.
The scoop.
I love that you tried to manifest it, and then it did happen, but he didn't come out and talk after the fact. God, what a very different kind of press conference it is with the WWE than AEW.
Well, why didn't they let him talk to the press? Right, it's a big moment. They've had other people come out and have the big moments, and then they address the press. I think
it's kind of simple though. I think a big part of it is you want the first time for Punk to talk to be on WWE programming and not on a press conference.
Well, I'm pushing for time with him. So I'm hoping to get that. I know everybody wants it. They want that Nick Hausman sit down with CM Punk. Guys, I'm trying to make it. For what it's worth, I'm trying to get more time with Seth Rollins too, because while the exchange with Punk obviously made a lot of news, I actively asked Rollins about Punk and made a lot of news when he called him cancer, and that clip has been shared a million times. And I think it's time that Seth and I catch up and talk a little bit more about where things are at right now. I think people would enjoy that
people want to
conversation.
know.
People want to know, Russ.
They deserve to know. They deserve to know where these guys stand. It's interesting because I think it obviously got people so excited about what was to come on Raw. I was shocked that he didn't lead the show. I get the idea of you want to backload the final block. You want to have a reason for people to stick around for 3 very long hours of Monday Night Raw. I couldn't believe that he was in the last segment. Because to me, you just know the way that this trends and the way that the ratings trend, there's always a dip in those final few quarter hours, especially in a 3-hour Raw. And for them to have, taken the risk of having it not be in front of the biggest crowd is surprising. I think you missed out on a lot of the casual viewers who might have dropped off, didn't follow Punk to AEW, that would have been interested to see what he had to say in the first 15 minutes of Raw. Also would have prevented you from potentially having to cut time, which has been reported in a bunch of places, that the promo ended up having to get cut a little bit short because they had a few segments go over. I don't totally agree with the rationale, but what he had to say is what just perturbed me, because I understand, and maybe you can add some color to this, but I can understand that in WWE, there's no reason to acknowledge any form of another company because to them there is no competition. And I can understand that Tony Khan went out and said some nonsense about not legally being able to react to Punk going and signing elsewhere. Fine. But to act as though he has not been in a ring, or I've missed you, Chicago, when you've performed in front of the Chicago fans for the last few years, to me is crazy. And it's almost offensive in a way to the intelligence of a wrestling fan, because everyone's known that he came back. And so to not even little tip of the cap like Cody did a few times when he first debuted was a little bit weird to me. Was it weird to you?
I mean, look, it was not the promo I think a lot of people expected from Punk. It was not necessarily the promo I expected from Punk. By all accounts, it was a very safe promo, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see why people would be upset about that, right? I think that him addressing his exit 10 years ago, right, with the wise man reference and how he did leave and come back, it was about as much as you were going to get. If you were offended by his lack of addressing the AEW thing, I think that offense is meant to be felt within AEW as well, because I think the idea that Punk is just going to ignore and not talk about, not give any attention to that period of time, I think isn't. I think it isn't. It's meant as a slight, So yeah. I can understand why you would be upset about it and others would be upset about it, and it's what he wanted. He wanted to really besmirch, I think, AEW by not mentioning them, and that's the route.
It's weird, and I have to admit, I didn't dig the promo as a whole. Like, if I have to sit through 3 hours of a show, I expect to have a little bit of meat on the bone. I'm surprised that there was no effort to include anybody to name a couple of names. Like, there was nothing there. To not declare for the Rumble, which I thought was also really weird. Like, you had earlier in the show, Cody Rhodes declares himself for the Royal Rumble. He's going to be the first guy in. He doesn't say he's going to be number one, but he's declaring himself for the Royal Rumble. Certainly would have made sense for Punk to say, I'm back, I'm home, I've changed, all that, and I'll be entering the Royal Rumble. And we're going to get this thing back to where it was. None of that. Just weird,
Again, it's about where they want to go, right? I mean, one of the reasons he made out declare for the Rumble is it looks like they're going to, build here to Rollins and maybe Punk at the Rumble. I don't think they hold off till Mania. I saw that Sports Illustrated report where they could main event night one, and maybe, but it feels much more likely that we're going to see these two in the title picture at the Rumble. And I would not be surprised one bit to see Seth Rollins beat CM Punk at the Royal Rumble. I mean, if things go how they usually go.
Yeah. I want to get to some of the questions, comments, and concerns over here on YouTube and on Facebook. If you're joining us at It's Just Wrestling Pod on YouTube and on Facebook. If you're following on Twitter, we love you and appreciate you for checking in here live at It's Just Wrestling. No you and just. I don't like that Twitter still limits the number of characters on a handle, but that's neither here nor there. But we love you, we appreciate you, but we can't pull your comments up here. So you have to go over to YouTube, or you have to go over to Facebook. And if you're there, give us a like. Ethan Hubbard checks in and says he felt it was disingenuous. That promo was disingenuous to not harken back to anything that had happened. And I get what you're saying, that it probably hurts Tony Khan's ego, and it probably hurts some of the people in that locker room that we're just going to act like it never happened. It's almost like retconning it,
It's not what WWE wants either, right?
Yeah.
They want to have the focus remain on the hot product they've been, they've been presenting in the big money making operation they've had. I don't think they want to get distracted by talking or making references to AEW. I mean, look at the actions, right? They brought Cody in. They didn't change how he looked in any way from AEW. They just heightened this act that he had refined outside of their grasp, and they're letting it thrive, right? They actually have with Cody in his documentary, they have referenced his past, but it's not really something he leans a whole ton into. Jade Cargill, same thing. They referenced it, I think, in the SI piece that she was TBS champion, but outside of that, they've just been trying to present her as a big deal. And with Punk, again, they're going to focus on where they want that spotlight to be, and they don't want it on all of the craziness with AEW.
Maybe we'll see something down the line with him and Rollins where I think back to when Roman and Cody first interacted. Roman dropped the line on Cody, something to the extent of, you went and created a company that you couldn't get yourself over in, and then you ran away.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe it makes sense. Like if they're going to do a nod, maybe they do a nod where like they pull up the wonderful, remarks that he had to you about Punk being a cancer. I don't think that they're going to put you on screen for that. I can't imagine that they're going to use
that clip might get used. I don't
clip.
know, man. Who knows? But, I don't own it. So,
but the idea of him kind of going after Punk for being this cancer in the locker room, and then maybe there is a line about, you got yourself fired everywhere you've gone, something like that. Like, all right, then maybe there's a little bit of a wink and a nod. How long do you think it's going to be until we see him in the ring? Are we waiting until the Royal Rumble? Like, where do you or is he going to have a tune-up match? Are we going to see him against Tozawa? Like, where are we looking at?
Is there a pay-per-view in December? It's
no. World's End. World's End is happening in
AEW, but
no,
WWE, no WWE. So yeah, because I think there's like a long break until Royal Rumble now, right?
Yeah,
I don't think there's anything going on. So I would guess if it's going to be that long, maybe a tune-up match. But again, like, dude, it's so fluid right now. It doesn't even sound like that this contract was signed until like the day of. Showed up in street clothes, right? Walked out with the old Titantron stuff they had for him, right? They're using old promo photos from like in his comeback graphic. It's all so fluid right now.
Do you think he did he have like the phone in hand and he docu-signed it right before he came through the curtain? Like, is that where we are here in 2023? Just
probably. Who knows? Maybe. I don't know. Barry Bloom probably handled it. Whatever he wanted to do.
You're right, though. They don't have another pay-per-view or PLE until Royal Rumble in January. There is NXT deadline. I cannot imagine we're going to see CM Punk in NXT.
Dude, Shawn Michaels loves CM Punk. Before Punk was back in WWE, I asked Shawn Michaels about Punk on an NXT media call, and he glowed. He was like, "Oh, I love Punk. He's a different kind of cat. He's kind of like me. I'd love to have him in NXT." So I could absolutely see CM Punk. They need the next time NXT winds up head-to-head with Dynamite, you don't think they're going to drag CM Punk down to NXT to do a match with Carmelo Hayes? Hell yeah. Sign him up. I definitely think it's happening.
CM Punk versus Braun Breaker. There are some matches that could be interesting. What if CM Punk aligns with Jade Cargill and they invade NXT?
Would be great. Him, Cody, Jade, Lexis King.
I don't know about Lexis King. I'm not there. We're gonna keep it positive today. I don't want to crap on Lexis King here, but I'm not feeling it. That's just me.
No, I'm not gonna lie. I'm still in hold and wait and see mode with old Lexis King at the moment.
Yeah, seems like a good guy, but it ain't it right now. Varna brings up this idea of Heyman turning on Roman and aligning with Punk at Mania, with a heel Punk at Mania. I cannot fathom that they would go with Roman versus Punk at Mania. I don't see. It feels like this whole thing has to lead back to Cody, right? That Cody and Roman are going to be in a program, and then here's one. throw this to you. So if Punk is going to be on this super face run to start, like he did with AEW, could we see a scenario where a face Punk goes into Mania as World Heavyweight Champion, and he's opposed by Gunther? That as a heel Gunther, that like I could get behind that.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a stretch right now. My gut says that they're going to do Roman and Dwayne. I think The Rock and Roman is this year. I think Punk Steve Austin seems to be the dream match everybody wants. And if there's one thing Hunter is really good at right now, it's about listening to what people want and delivering it. And I think Steve would do it. I think Punk would do it. I'm going to go ahead and in my head pencil that one in. And then Cody, right? I really always like the scenario of Cody, Roman night one. Roman Rock maybe night one with the winner facing Cody on night two. Something like that. Or Cody versus Rock night one, winner versus Roman night two. Just to keep Cody in that mix there with The Rock and Roman. But I don't really know where Cody falls this year. My gut says now that the TKO merger has happened and Endeavor is in charge, I think Dwayne will be at WrestleMania and he will be in a very prominent position.
I want to get back to some questions, comments, concerns here. Daniel checks in, says, the people complaining about the promo need to get over it. I don't even like Punk, but people complained about him being petty in AEW, then wanted him to be petty and on Raw and shoot on them. Yeah, but like it's social media. Like we want easily digestible.
I agree with Daniel.
Content. Daniel, don't come here with logic, reason, and sound. Like, just stop. I'm just kidding. It's fine.
Fickle fans, man. Like Bryan Danielson says, fickle fans, my friend. Yeah.
Don't
be petty. Be petty. Don't be petty. Be petty. I think Punk, the way that Punk handled it, while not, very exciting, right? There's other stuff. I don't know about a Rumble announcement, but I do think what that promo was lacking was a tease in a direction.
Yes.
If it's not Rumble, it's something to keep you on the hook about where do we go from here, right? Now, we know Punk's back. We know he's happy he's home. He's there to make money. What am I tuning in to see next in this chapter with Punk? We'll likely probably start to figure out what that is this Monday. Maybe they didn't know. But even if it was just like a red herring tease or something, I would have liked a little direction in that promo about where we are going next with Punk to get people to come back.
If he's going to get into it with Rollins, like it would have made the most sense for him at the end to say, when he kind of diverges from that, everybody's been happy to see me. I've gotten kissed on the lips, blah, blah, blah. There are some people who aren't happy. I've even heard myself being referred to as a hypocrite earlier. We might have to have a conversation about that. Like, there's a good way to go off the air, because then you've at least, there's like that little bit of that lead towards the Rollins thing. It was just weird. I don't know. Maybe it's true that things were cut for time and like he didn't get to go all the way in. Do you think he'll be on SmackDown? I haven't seen any kind of announcement that he'll be there on Friday.
It does feel like they're going to keep him as a Raw product at the moment, or addition to Raw. There's been reports, obviously, that Nick Khan and Paul Triple H Levesque are out in LA right now working on securing the TV rights deal for Raw, which sounds like it could be coming up here pretty soon. It's Friday. Tomorrow's Friday. That's a great day for news to drop, just saying. But I think that they're going to keep Punk on Monday night right now, at the very least until that deal is done, just to be like, hey, look, this thing is special. We brought Punk back, and it's just on Raw.
Yeah.
Wow. And then you make the deal, and then you can do whatever you want. But I think that them putting a focus on Punk's back, Punk's on Raw. You want Raw? Money. That seems like a pretty good arrangement for the time being.
Hey, Zaslav, remember you called Punk one Bill Phil? You excited? You want to get a little bit of WBD in there?
I haven't gotten into it on rumor and innuendo, but that's the rumor and innuendo, right?
Yeah.
Because I saw the It's Wrestling World tweet or whatever, and I've reached out to people in the know about what's going on there. Could Warner Brothers Discovery get WWE Raw? I will throw this log into the fire. I did say I reported like within the last month or so, I don't know. But like the report that Tony Khan was approached by the CW about bringing Ring of Honor content there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, not interested. The TV rights for AEW come up, in early 2024. I want to pair those with Ring of Honor. That's, from what it sounds like to me, says that there's no impending deal with Warner on the horizon with Tony Khan. And if anything, it sounds like Tony, from what I'm hearing, is prepared to shop this thing around, right? And like, it's not a guarantee, which is, it flies in the face of what I've heard from other people who actually have connections to Warner. They're like, oh, everybody's very hunky-dory, everybody's pot committed to AEW. But then you hear all this stuff, like, what's going on, man? A little Yankee swap? I don't know.
I'm in this like weird scenario, right? Like where I don't let myself get like too much of a homerish thing here, but I'm also not like covering this thing like it's a thing that I do with my other job, like where I cover the Flyers and like I do the whole thing, journalistic integrity. And so like I like to let the fan part of me come out with wrestling. And from day one, I supported what AEW was doing. And I was all in on the idea. And I was all in on there being an alternative. And it's like the more that Tony Khan speaks, the harder it is to kind of support the endeavor. Because by all accounts, he's a very nice man, good-hearted man. And then he kind of throws these like tantrums at press conferences. Like, I'm not going to put up with this shit. In reference to WWE running shows on the same weekend as AEW shows. And then this idea that like you wouldn't even entertain the idea of CW and Ring of Honor is weird. Like that's almost like you're being almost overly loyal to a network that hasn't shown you the money beyond this year. Like that to me is weird. It's a strange business practice, I guess. If they're open to the idea of shopping AEW around, where the hell is it going to go?
That is another great question, Russ.
Because
that is another great question.
Like Fox isn't going to be interested. That product doesn't work. I mean, they were blurring out or bleeping out when The Rock had, what did The Rock have? People chanting at you're an asshole at Austin Theory or whatever it was when he came back in Colorado that one night.
Sure.
Like there's no AEW does not work on Fox. There's no way. So is the idea that like, all right, let the WWE kind of get everybody excited, get Warner Brothers excited, get Amazon excited, get like a Disney with FX excited, and then maybe like try to capitalize on, hey, you didn't get the WWE, but we have this. Like, it's weird. The whole thing's weird to me. And if I'm Warner Brothers, unless I own a third of the company already of AEW, which there are conflicting reports about if they own any of it, like, why would you not want to be associated with the WWE if you have the ability?
It's a very good question, Russ. We don't really know what exactly the details of the initial contract are that Tony made with Warner Brothers Discovery that's brought them to this point, and they got picked up for that extra year. I've heard, that this David Zaslav was not the president at the time Tony made the deal initially with Warner Brothers Discovery. There was somebody else in charge, and that person was cycled out, and there's new management in charge. And so in the time since AEW's been on TNT, TBS, there's been changes in management. There's been changes in attitude towards pro wrestling. I'm not saying one way or another. I don't want anybody to misinterpret what I'm saying there. But, people, it's different people, different thoughts on whatever's going on here. I don't know that Tony will be able to get as generous of a deal in some areas than maybe he got initially with the first deal. And that's maybe why he wants to go shop it around. But I'm with you, man. Like, Netflix, maybe like a streaming platform that's looking for, that guaranteed 500,000 AEW subscribers or whatever it could be, possibly. I don't know.
Could a Paramount Plus? I mean, but like, you're not going to grow your company if your idea is to take all of your stuff streaming. Like I am 100% in line with this idea. Like I think in sports, where sports are going to head, all the regional sports networks are dying off. And within 5 years, they'll all be gone. And a lot of these teams are going to take their rights and they're going to sell them off to like a Peacock, to an Apple TV Plus. That's where these games will go. Unless a league does what MLS did and they send the entire league's rights to like an Apple TV Plus. But the idea of an AEW or even a WWE at some point saying we're going to go fully streaming never made sense when WWE was shopping their shows around. I cannot fathom a scenario where it makes any sense if you're trying to grow the product to say like, yeah, AEW Dynamite, Rampage, Collision, and ROH are all going to live exclusively on Netflix, or are all going to live exclusively on Paramount Plus. That to me just doesn't make sense. I mean, could it happen? I don't know. I mean, nothing would surprise me anymore. But it's bold.
It's going to be very interesting. It'll be a hot way to start next year when we get into those AEW TV rights negotiations. I do think that it looks like we're going to find out what's going on with Raw and TV rights probably before the end of the year. So WWE content will be locked down. It will just be AEW content floating out there that we're going to be trying to find out where it goes. Maybe it's the CW app, right? Maybe that becomes the home.
The CW just becomes the home of every company.
Yeah.
You'll have what is NWA? Is it NWA Power has 8 episodes on the app?
Oh yeah.
You'll have NXT going there.
I don't know if NXT winds up on the app next to Billy's stuff. Maybe.
No, they'll be on the actual network. I would think that they would probably have some, after it airs on TV, I would think that it would end up
the streaming rights for NXT could be different, right? Like we know that they've got the broadcast rights for NXT. Are the streaming rights for NXT and Raw and SmackDown, do those get bundled together somewhere else? Because right now the Raw streaming rights belong to Hulu and it makes no effing sense or whatever. Anyway, streaming rights not always lumped in with broadcast rights.
I want to get to this now. I want to turn this page here because I know that we're kind of cutting up against our time here. But AEW, I think, did a good job last night of trying to pivot away. There weren't too many allusions to Punk being gone, with the exception of MJF mentioning that he had beaten Punk, he had beaten Cody Rhodes, he had beaten Samoa Joe before. I feel like they did a pretty good job of turning the page, but there's the one thing that's sitting out there that, boy, you better stick the landing on, and it's the Devil storyline. I'm happy they didn't have the Devil laugh this week because that was horrific. But man, the more this goes on, the more worried I get that they haven't made a decision on who the Devil is yet. Because that initial crew that did the attack looked kind of like the Kingdom and maybe a Roddy Strong and maybe an Adam Cole. Or it could have been a Britt Baker because that was a slight person. And then last night, that crew sure looked a little bit Pinnacle-esque to me. Definitely beefier dudes.
Interesting. Yeah, Wardlow, a lot of Wardlow stuff. There was this negative tweet about MJF that Jack Perry and Sammy Guevara and Britt Baker all liked. So those are all now possible candidates. I agree, man. This is their opportunity to stick a landing strong. There are a couple that make sense, right? Adam Cole could have been working us this whole time, right? Maybe he's not as injured as many as have thought. Jack Perry is the Devil right now in a lot of people's minds.
Yeah,
not a bad pick. That's
a bad pick. I mean, I understand why people are coming up with it, but that's catastrophic to me. If that ends up being the reveal,
the only name I will not accept as the Devil is Tony Khan. If this whole thing turns out to be a higher power Tony Khan, I think that people will be very, very upset. That is the only thing I will say. Don't go that direction.
For a while, I thought that it could have been Tony, but it would have made more sense if we had a heel MJF continuing to argue and to threaten the bidding war of 2024, and that at World's End, you get this reveal that it was Tony Khan, and Tony's sending everyone after him and says, you're still locked in. You're actually locked in for 2 more months. You've been lying to people. It's really not January 1st. It's, it's March 1st or whatever. And you go after it like that. You're going to threaten me? Then fuck off. We'll just get you until somebody gets the belt off you. But you're still running with babyface MJF. It doesn't make any sense. The 3 who liked the tweet, could you see the pillars of AEW? And we, I guess, consider Britt as a quasi pillar after Punk anointed her back during the MJF feud. But do we see all the pillars turn against MJF? Darby's going to be gone for a while. Does Darby come back to level the sides in 2024? No. But I don't know.
Look, MJF is another possible candidate here, right? We have not seen these devilish figures target Max personally. We haven't seen him take out Jay White, others, right? We have the Acclaimed. We haven't seen them target MJF yet. So has it been MJF all the time? Him or Adam Cole? I think it's one of the two.
The only thing that makes me think it's not Cole, or that would be disappointing, is, and I mean this in the nicest way, who am I to say, right? But like when Adam Cole came out at Full Gear, and he looked very pale, and he looked like a guy who hadn't, I guess, been actively kind of working on the physique in the way that he seemed to have been prior to getting hurt. I don't know. It doesn't do it for me. Like if he comes back, if like this is the reveal, is that Adam Cole's been working everyone the whole time, and that he really is the devil, and he's going to immediately feud, and the injury was a work. I don't know if that has the same oomph to it that it would have had a month ago. Because the longer that you go with Adam Cole being hurt and it all being all being fake, like I don't know, the longer it happens, the more you're like, well, yeah, he healed. Like your ankle heals. It's not going to stay broken forever. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure about it. MJF revealing himself as the devil, realigned with the Pinnacle last night, would have been something, except that Wardlow's been threatening his life. So I don't know how that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. But it is a good story for AEW because there's a lot of questions, a lot of people talking about it. And for that reason, best thing they've done in a little while.
No, they just have to stick the line. It can't be Black Scorpion.
No. Well, Flair's there. So, I mean, it could.
You know what? And, well, we're not gonna get into this because I wonder if it's actually gonna air or not. But the Ric Flair reported a promo on Rampage. A lot of alarm bells going off.
Oh yeah, doesn't he like say that if there's women between 26,
18 and 28 is what I saw getting floated around.
18 and 28, no boyfriends, no husbands, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
Woo!
Okay.
That's something. That's something. All right. Nick, I appreciate you coming on the show. Obviously, like we're at a point now where at the end of the year, typically, the wrestling dies off a little bit. The lead up to the Rumble gets a little bit hotter in January, and then it's a full board to Mania. But like right now, at the end of the year, we don't usually see massive pivotal reveals. It feels like, if nothing else, World's End is supposed to be a big moment to kind of punch things into the next year in 2024. Let me get your official prediction. If the devil is revealed at World's End, who does it end up being?
I mean, it feels like Adam Cole. I mean, it just everything would point to Adam Cole. I don't know how it couldn't be him or maybe Max, but I think Adam Cole.
Okay. I want to imagine that it's somebody who's in the company now. If they use this as a reveal for Mustafa Ali or Dolph Ziggler, I don't see that going over as well either. But we'll see.
Their contracts, they'll be free and clear 90 days. December 22nd, I think, is the date. So it could be, it could be top dollar AJ Francis. We don't know.
Who's to say? Maybe it was Shelton Benjamin all along. Wouldn't that be something? Anyway, a big thank you to Nick for coming on. Nick, get your plugs in. Obviously, Haus of Wrestling, Rumor and Innuendo, but let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, no, you said it right there. Haus of Wrestling, hausofwrestling.com. Rumor and Innuendo, Monday through Friday, noon Eastern on all many platforms. Just Google it. We're on your podcast feeds. And I'm at Nick_Hausman over on Twitter.
You can find this show, It's Just Wrestling. If you're new to the show, by all means, head over to YouTube, youtube.com/@itsjustwrestlingpod. You can just go on to YouTube, and you can go in a little search field, and you can look up It's Just Wrestling. It's that beautiful logo right there. There we go. That logo, you can go follow. Thank you so much. You can follow the show over on YouTube. Ring the bell to make sure that you never miss an episode when we go live. And of course, you can find the show wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find It's Just Wrestling. And as we know, this is either your favorite or your 10th favorite podcast, your 10th favorite pro wrestling podcast. Wrapped is coming up on Spotify now. I don't expect to see it here, but I do expect in 2024 that we will see a bunch of people showing that they're supporting It's Just Wrestling, and maybe even Rumor and Innuendo. So for Nick, I'm Russ. Thanks for checking in. Talk to you very soon here on It's Just Wrestling.